Hey, everybody, we're here for the new episode of Five for Talking. We're back. We're fresh. I'm here with Caps, the captain of the show. We're going to jump into this. We're going to do mostly Leafs talk in this episode, but we're going to get some NHL out of the way right in the beginning here. And I just really want to talk about the standings, the playoff race. It's one of the better years in the NHL, at least recently, in recent memory, that the playoff race, as good as the East is generally, but for both divisions, it's really tight. It's really entertaining. Even if you're not watching the games, just following what's happening has been a real treat. And I feel almost like, it sounds stupid to say this, but I feel almost blessed that to have such an entertaining NHL season this year with everything going on with Connor McDavid and all this. Do you feel that way?
Absolutely. There's a bunch of things going on. You have the McDavid having his probably best season he'll have in his career. Draisaitl's having a fantastic season. Like McDavid could end up getting 155 points by the end of the season. Possibly 70 goals.
Hey, possibly, I know. And that's pretty crazy. We'll hold on to McDavid. We'll get to McDavid, but
Sure.
As we're in the East here, the Islanders, like, who would have thought Bo Horvat and Pierre Engvall were going to be the moves that the Islanders needed to shake everything up to put them where they're at? This is crazy. They're like really solid again.
And who would have thought? Horvat did make a statement in his first game. Pierre Engvall, I think, had a really decent first game. Kind of tapered off a little bit, but
he's on the second line now. He's been dropped down.
It's going to be a tight race for the East. You have Florida, I believe.
Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is on fire.
Pittsburgh is playing well. You got New York Islanders playing well. You got Florida's starting to catch heat.
I would say realistically, I mean, the Sabres and the Senators are both close, but I would say really only the Sabres have a chance. I don't think Ottawa's going to be able to maintain it. I don't think Washington is getting it.
No, I don't think Washington is getting it. But you just named two teams that are going to have bright futures.
Oh, yeah.
Buffalo and Ottawa. But
you know what? I really like the moves at the deadline that Washington made. I think some of those young players, Sandin looks great in a Capitals uniform.
Yep.
He's been playing well.
He's playing well.
Just before we really move on from this, I have two questions. Well, a statement and a question. Alex Ovechkin is just unbelievable. He's got a shot at 50 goals. There's 7 games left in the season, and he has 42 goals.
Is this the question, or is this?
No, this is just me saying this. I just think, wow. My question
words
is,
out of my mouth.
over the last little period of hockey, Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby have been absolutely outstanding. Do Pittsburgh at least have a shot to get out of the first round? Because they're probably going to face Boston.
Based on what happened with Florida last year, anything's possible. I mean, yes, Florida did make it out of the first round, but they absolutely got swept in the second round. But, historically, you've had teams that were superior during the regular season, like Tampa and Colorado, and they just fudged. They just didn't do anything in that first round. They just dropped the ball. So anything's possible going into the playoffs. Pittsburgh absolutely has a shot against Boston going into the first round. But is it so? If you got the first wild card spot to currently to New York Islanders and the second to Pittsburgh. So do the Islanders face Boston, or is it the
Islanders would face Carolina?
Okay, so Pittsburgh would face Boston. Okay, there you go. Yeah, anything's possible, man. Anything's possible.
You know what? You're absolutely correct. So I don't want to dwell too long in the East because I think you made a lot of good points before we started this episode about what's happening in the West, and like a team in the West from like the 9th spot or 10th spot could still take the top spot somehow in like a random turn of events. Minnesota Wild have been very good lately. Marc-Andre Fleury is 4-0-1. We're filming this on Saturday, April 1st. This is not an April Fool's joke. Marc-Andre Fleury has been amazing. And this team spent the trade deadline mostly selling. And they have no Kaprizov. And they're still doing this.
Sometimes things just happen. I don't have an answer for it. The team is playing great. Like you said, Fleury is 4-0-1 in the last 5 games. They are currently first in their division.
It's a very close division.
And they are in front of a favored Colorado Avalanche.
And a favored by us Dallas Stars.
Dallas Stars were like first in their division for most of the season this year.
Listen, Vegas is number 1 in the West. I almost said East twice.
But it's so funny because they're like within 2-3 points of each other. All like the first 3 teams in each division. So anybody can get first place in any of those by the end of the season.
So pardon my French, but Marc-Andre Fleury is very good. His name is French. That's what my pardon was. So
didn't sound French to me.
Fleury. So today we're filming this on Saturday. This video will be posted today. Vegas faces Minnesota. So I think this is the test for them. And also what we just talked about, Pittsburgh faces Boston. So I think this is a proving point for both situations. If Minnesota wins tonight, I think they truly might be the best team right now in the West. And if Pittsburgh beats Boston tonight, I think maybe Pittsburgh has a shot. Because Boston has everyone playing. They're playing Swayman. And
Boston's playing everyone tonight?
Yeah.
It's so funny because, around this time of the year, a lot of the top teams that have solidified a playoff spot would rest some of their top players.
I think you're going to see that mostly coming in the next week.
Okay.
But just like we breezed over it, Boston has 121 points, which is 18 more points than anyone else. Okay. They have over 20 more points than anyone in the West.
That's without Taylor Hall, eh?
Yeah. I mean, he hasn't contributed that much this season, but I still will agree with you on that.
Going into the playoffs, he's going to be doing something.
Well, get ready because our tier list is coming. Our playoff tier list is coming. We have to wait till everyone clinches. So moving on from that, Connor McDavid has been a beast. I had a question for you with Edmonton. Do you believe that Edmonton, not in the same sense of Pittsburgh to get out of the first round, is Edmonton a legit contender, especially being in the West?
I would say so.
I think you need perfect 100% Jack Campbell for that to happen.
Yeah. The defense needs to seriously tighten it up. You can't always depend on your forward group to score 6-7 goals a night to get you through, but you got to tighten things up a little bit.
Absolutely.
With the defense and the goaltending. Campbell, if he could turn into the Jack Campbell from last year, absolutely, Edmonton's got a shot. All those teams have a shot. We talked about the East being far more superior than the West, but then we're watching hockey in the last maybe 3 weeks, and you're seeing teams out of the West that are seriously good. They are seriously good teams. Edmonton's definitely got a shot. They definitely surprised me last year against Colorado. They definitely gave them a bit of a run for their money, even though Colorado came out on top. But it just goes to show that when their backs are up against the wall, you know, McDavid doesn't, just give up. He'll go out fighting. So yeah, definitely.
I
I
think
think they do.
I'm going to agree with you on that 100%. I think this year is an outlier in his career so far where Connor McDavid has not even remotely slowed down, given up, looked like he's frustrated with his team. He completely looks like, I don't care how bad we're doing. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing every night, and eventually it's going to work. And he absolutely has. And he's putting up ridiculous numbers. We're, like we said, 70 goals, maybe 150-point potential. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, you literally hit the nail on the head. This is the difference between this year's McDavid and previous year's McDavid. He's got a new motivation based on what happened last year in the playoffs. He knows and feels that his team is good enough to get the job done. So he's just putting everything on the line and just doing what he can to help his team.
We haven't seen a pairing of such with him and Draisaitl since the Gretzky-Messier days. I mean, on a star power level, yes, you had the Doug Weight, Jason Arnott days, but they are not in a category with Gretzky or Messier or McDavid and Draisaitl. And Draisaitl's been really solid. And I think this year is the year for me where he proved that he doesn't need Connor McDavid and he can still put up those numbers. Because they've been playing separated for a lot of the season.
And they have the flexibility to put them together. You know what I mean?
Which
they can. I think a lot of teams have been doing that.
Which we'll see. We could see that because we'll get to that when we get to Leafs, where they have that kind of flexibility as well. So the LA Kings have been great. I just want to touch on that. We'll breeze past it. Seattle's let it slip a bit, but I for the team they have, I cannot believe how far they've gone.
Yeah.
Winnipeg Jets right in there, fighting for a spot. Jets let it slip a bit, but their team is nasty. They have a top 3 goalie.
Yeah, but they got to get it together, man. Because I've seen reports where, they're frustrated and they're not getting along and all that stuff. They just got to get it together, man. Just got to get together and they'll be fine. They got the firepower. They got the goaltending. They can do some damage this year.
They can hit too. They have a lot of their forwards are pretty big guys. So I guess the team that's the most in the race here for the West, Calgary Flames, they're hot and cold. It's really crazy because we thought they were going to be one of the best teams, especially coming off last year. I thought the moves they made were beneficial. I thought removing the locker room problem that was Tkachuk, replacing him with a star player in Huberdeau, and then also getting Weegar plus Kadri, I thought, wow, this is like really what they need. I know they lost Gaudreau, but it still feels like I can't really believe it. A team that got better defensively, but kind of stayed the same offensively, somehow got worse. Markstrom's not really playing well. I know
That's
you
a
were
shocker.
I know you were saying there were some issues. Did you want to talk about that?
I mean, it looks like Kadri and Sutter are going at it. Sutter has been disappointed with Huberdeau's play. It's not consistent. It hasn't been consistent all season. I mean, you got guys that are getting paid a lot of money, and they're having a lot of off nights rather than on nights, if that's even an expression. But the fact of the matter is that, like you said, they're not playing to where we thought they should be playing at. And we thought that they would be one of the top teams in the West, and they're just not playing that way. They still have a shot. They still have a shot to make the playoffs. They're only about 2 points back from the last wild card spot. But it just seems as though they're letting egos get in the way of their success and what they're capable of doing.
Absolutely, and I agree 100%. I think I do agree with the fact that Huberdeau has been playing very poorly. I don't know what it is. He's someone I would have bet my bank account on to be successful in Calgary, especially with Sutter. I don't ever agree with Kadri, even though he's kind of right, because I do feel like he's a shit disturber, excuse my language, and it always bothers me. I feel like Kadri just sometimes needs to know when to be quiet. And because that those kind of things affect your locker room, this, that, and the other thing. Anyways, if you don't have anything else on this, we can enter into the Toronto Maple Leafs talk. All right. So the Leafs, to me, I'm going to open this up with my opinion. Going into the playoffs are a little bit worrisome because they play well one game and poorly the next game, completely contradicting what they did well in the first game. So if, let's say, tonight they do really well defensively, the next game they'll be open. If they do really well offensively tonight, the next game they won't do anything offensively. And even if they win both games, it leaves me a little bit like skeptical. And one thing I was talking to my dad about actually was I find it strange that they'll do very well against good teams, but then any team that has nothing to lose and lays it all on the line, the Leafs can't compete with that. When they face a Montreal or an Ottawa, the Leafs get taken to school. And then they'll face the Rangers and play well. So I don't know. Do you have anything similar opinionated? Do you think I'm wrong?
I don't think you're wrong at all. This is just speculation. I don't know what their state of mind is in the locker room, but we know historically that they play down to some of those teams that are not.
Wow, that's a really good way to put it. I didn't even think of that. They do that.
They have a tendency to do that. They play down on to some of those teams that we know that they're not going to make the playoffs. Do they let up? It's a possibility. I think at this point, I'm afraid to say this because it would contradict what's going on in the beginning portion of the season. But I'm just thinking maybe they're not putting in the effort while playing a team that's not going to make the playoffs because they have already made the playoffs and they're just too worried about getting injured or whatnot. And they are putting in the effort against teams that are in the playoffs because, those are teams that they might face in the playoffs. I don't know. That's a tough one to answer. But I agree with your point because I have seen it as well while watching Leaf games, and it is kind of worrisome because you want to be able to be consistent every night. You wanted to put in a full 60-minute effort because that's what a good team does. That's what a championship team does. Boston has definitely been doing that all season.
Yeah, the Boston is a great example. And if I can cut in for a second, I'd like to say something from a coaching sense. If I'm the Leafs, you're already locked in right now, okay? You're making the playoffs no matter what. Where you finish, it can be anywhere. I think they're going to stay where they are. But especially in this final stretch, I think no matter who you face, how you play, whether you play down to teams is irrelevant. They need to build the confidence of their goaltenders going into this playoff. And we know this, okay? We know how hockey works at this point. We've been around long enough that the goalie in going into the playoffs is arguably the most important piece of your team. You have two good goalies. They're both capable. Why do you feel that it's okay to let your goalie down in the end of the season when you're trying to establish your morale and build momentum? And I just think if you, even if you're not going to go out there and give 100% scoring because you don't need to win this game or it doesn't matter, I think you need to still lay it all on the line. And if anything, you should be working together to coordinate your defense, to build chemistry, so that way it's there in the playoffs, because you have the talent to score goals. Don't let your goalies down at this point of the season. You want to go into the playoffs with 2 of your goalies getting 7 goals scored against them, and then that's how you're going to enter the playoffs?
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. So we could take a look at the last few starts Matt Murray's had. He's played well,
but he's been very let down by the defense.
But that's exactly it. The fact of the matter is he's let in about 4 or 5 goals in those games. And we know that he's a bit shaky sometimes when it comes to him as a person.
And I'm going to agree that Samsonov has been the better goalie, but still, I'm agreeing 100% with what you're saying.
Dude, you got like the Wall over there that's playing amazing too. Yeah. You know, we know Murray and Samsonov are going into the playoffs as the Leafs goalies. But if something were to happen, I wouldn't be surprised if Wall were to take someone's spot. If one of them were to play like crap for the last little bit. But that's not something you want to let happen, because, you want those guys' morale and confidence to be at an all-time high going into the playoffs. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I look at these games with the Leafs to be trials. I think Keefe is really trying to establish which defensive pairings he's going to go into the playoffs with. He's trying different lines. He's trying different pairings. I'm not surprised that some of those games have resulted in them just playing like crap. But I'm just hoping that he doesn't lose them too much. I hope that he's clarified this with the team before he did this, by letting them know, hey, we're going to do a few things differently for the next little while, because we want to be able to figure out what fits the best. Liljegren, I think the last time we had an episode, I said Liljegren should be in the final 6 or one of the pairings. I'm not so sure about that anymore. He's not been playing well. And you can't have someone that's been making mistakes in the last little bit to be a player going into the playoffs with. It's just not a good idea.
Absolutely fair. That's such a good.
I'm going to take Justin Hall over Liljegren. I'll say it on right now. Like, as of this point, even though Justin Hall has his ups and downs, lately he's been playing okay. And I'm thinking the guy that's playing okay over the guy that's been messing up.
I think I'd give Gustafsson a chance.
Yeah, the only reason why he isn't playing is like for personal reasons.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he hasn't been playing as of late for personal reasons, but I'm saying for now, that's what I would go with.
No, and I agree.
If Gustafsson comes back quick enough, then I would, look at it differently.
So I know you had a question to ask me, but just to touch on the defense, Luke Schenn. So he's done exactly what they paid him to come in and do. However, from a team standpoint, not a management standpoint, he doesn't contribute enough defensively for me. Yes, he hits. Yes, he's physical, but I don't see him as like, if he's the last guy back, I'm worried.
Yeah, because he is a bit slow.
And his general defensive abilities are not as strong. Like, even Morgan Riley's stick checking ability is more favorable to have in a last man back situation.
And that's the thing. You can't have those two together. Oh,
no,
man.
Absolutely not.
You can't.
They did that for one game, right?
And thank God it went okay. Yeah. But you're right. It's like, but the one thing, the couple things that he does bring to the table that a lot of those guys don't, is that he pushes people out of the way.
Oh, absolutely. And he hits.
And he hits. But yeah, it's like Campos. What do you do? It's like, you take the good with the bad.
I think they just have to find a balance in the line, in the pairings.
But he's definitely not the worst one out of the bunch.
No, he's not.
Not
right now, at least.
I say he's in going into the playoffs.
I
That's my opinion.
I would take him over Morgan Riley. Okay, so you wanted to ask me something. I remember.
Well, I mean, it is definitely a question that's been tossed around with podcasts and analysts and whatnot. So I'll ask you because you're all of those things. But do you spread things out, or do you load up your two lines?
Now we're in the playoffs.
Playoffs. Well, definitely in the playoffs.
Okay, with the assumption that we're facing Tampa, because neither one of the teams in the wild card are from our division. I do think that you spread it out. And why? Because we've been burned by Tampa by not spreading out our wealth and getting dominated by their bottom six. And just hear me out on this. I do feel you should start out the series, at least see how it goes with your wealth spread out. Should it not work in the first game? Okay. Especially if it's close. If it goes 2 games, then we gotta reassess. But if you get blown out in the first game, immediately I'm going top heavy. If you go 2 games, you lose the first 2 games, I'm going top heavy again. Or even if you win and you look bad, maybe you got to shake things up. But I do think, especially against Tampa, you need to spread it out. Against Boston, you might be able to go top heavy because they are also very top heavy. So that is what it is, right? Like, it's hard to really look into it because in the last 7 years or so of the Leafs losing in the first round, it's been almost the same teams every time. You know what I mean? So I can't really judge how it would be against Boston in the playoffs. I know what it's going to be like against Tampa Bay. It's going to be hard to score, and their bottom 6 is going to come out. So you got to plan for that. And I think having Riley on the third line, or Riley, sorry, kind of helps. Especially as a leader and an anchor, right? But should you need it, it also opens you up to have a strong power play because you can throw your fourth line out when the power play's over and let everybody rest. And it won't completely gas your first and second lines because you're going to be using guys from your third line on the power play as well. So I think that's how I would do it. What about you?
We'll go with yours. I like your answer. I like what you said. I'll reserve my opinion for another time.
Wow, I feel like he's against me. Okay,
No, not at all.
Last thing, unless you have anything else.
Because you brought up an important point, and that was it depends who you're facing. And I like that, and that kind of changed what my initial answer was going to be. So I'm going to have to rethink my answer.
Well, I'm going to bring it back as we get closer to the playoffs. Do you have anything else? Because I have one last thing.
I don't have anything else, man. I'm just here, enjoying my time talking to you, man.
I just want to talk quickly about how absolutely insanely on fire Auston Matthews is right now. And the fact that to see this Auston Matthews, who we haven't really seen all year, but this is the Auston Matthews that we know, is kind of shocking that the Leafs did everything they did without this. Because you're watching him play now, and it's like watching Connor McDavid play.
Well, that's because like Marner and Nylander probably took the brunt of the load on the productive side for the majority of the season. Now, Tavares is playing better.
Oh yeah.
Even though I think going into the playoffs, I think that they're gonna go Nylander and Matthews and Marner and Tavares.
Either way,
I think so. That's what I think they're going to do.
To me, that doesn't affect it. I don't.
But it's great to see that, and I think Nylander's kind of been up and down as of late, but he'll come back. It's good to see that they're all producing. I still think that Matthews should have rested a little more if his wrist was bothering him, because he would probably been producing a lot more than what he was doing now, so late into the season. But I'm just glad he's back and he's doing his thing, and here's to hoping that nothing happens in the last nine games.
I think it's 7.
Here's to hoping that nothing else happens, and they'll be ready.
Fair enough. Thank you for watching. Let us know what you think about the NHL currently, and like, comment, and subscribe. Peace out.